You know, whenever we sit down to talk about artificial intelligence, the conversation almost magnetically drifts toward the cinematic.
Right, the whole sci-fi angle.
Exactly. We worry about the rogue code.
Yeah.
We worry about the red laser eyes, the Terminator scenario.
The machines rising up to fight us on some dramatic, smoky battlefield.
Yeah, that is the default setting for human anxiety, isn't it? We are biologically wired to look for the predator, the explosion, the conflict.
We are. It is how we survive.
But I have a stack of research here today that argues we are looking in the complete opposite direction of where the train is actually coming from.
I mean, the premise of this deep dive isn't that the machines will fail or rebel or malfunction.
No?
The premise we are looking at today is much quieter and arguably much heavier. The question isn't what happens when they break.
Right.
It is what happens when they work. And not just work, what happens when they work too well.
That is the hook. Today we are diving into a really compelling series called AI Futures. It's authored by the analyst Jaffar Humayoon.
It is a fantastic piece of work.
It really is. And before we wade into the heavy stuff, we need to set the ground rules for you, the listener. Because Humayoon is very specific about what this is and what it isn't.
Right. This is crucial framing. Humayoon calls AI futures a framework, not a forecast.
Not a forecast.
Exactly. He is not telling you what the stock market is going to do next Tuesday or which specific job is safe next year. He writes, and I think this is worth quoting directly, he writes, "This series explores how AI may unravel the systems we take for granted, not to alarm, but to challenge assumptions and spark deeper thinking about what comes next under maximum AI adoption."
Maximum AI adoption. That is the key variable here. We aren't talking about a chatbot helping you write an email.
No, we are talking about a systemic saturation where the tech is everywhere, doing everything.
So we are looking at a style of analysis he calls speculative realism.
Speculative realism. It is looking at the physics of labor and consumption. If you change the laws of physics, in this case, economic physics, how does the rest of the universe bend?
And that brings us to episode 1 of this framework, which is titled The Productivity Paradox. Now, I'll be honest, when I first read that title, I paused.
Why is that?
Because in traditional economics, productivity is the holy grail. You want more output for less input. That is how we get richer. That is how your standard of living goes up.
Historically, yes. That has been the golden rule for 300 years of industrial capitalism.
But Humayoon suggests we are hitting a wall, or rather, a fork in the road. He describes a systemic decoupling.
Systemic decoupling. This is the core concept of the paradox. Decoupling is the specific moment when technical output, the sheer amount of stuff and services we can create, accelerates beyond the capacity of the human economic loop to actually absorb it.
So, to put it simply, the machine runs faster than the human can catch up.
Not just faster, it outpaces the operator in relevance. To understand why this is a paradox, you really have to look at how we have always made things. We have always been governed by what the source material calls peak output.
Right. Limits.
Hard limits. Production was always constrained by 3 variables: time, fatigue, and coordination costs.
You can only work 24 hours a day. Eventually you pass out.
And trying to get 10,000 people to agree on a blueprint is an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, the friction points. Those friction points kept supply and demand somewhat tethered. You couldn't just magically produce 1 billion units of something overnight because you physically couldn't organize the labor fast enough.
Exactly. But Humayoon argues that AI dissolves those constraints. It doesn't just lower them, it evaporates them.
There is a specific detail in the notes that highlights this shift. It talks about the move from teams to tokens.
It is a striking image.
It really is. The idea is that tasks, which historically required a hierarchy, managers, associates, logistics coordinators, HR reps, are compressed into compute cycles.
Tokens.
Right. One AI model writes the report in 10 seconds. Another optimizes the supply chain instantly. What used to take years now takes minutes.
And it happens quietly. That is the creeping efficiency the source talks about. It is not an explosion. It is just that suddenly the cost of generating value, whether that is a marketing strategy, a piece of code, or a logistical route, drops to near zero.
Which brings us to the first major phase of the paradox. The shift from an economy of scarcity to one of frictionless abundance.
Frictionless abundance.
Now, play devil's advocate for me here. Why is this a problem? For you listening, if we enter a world where we can produce unlimited reports, unlimited designs, unlimited goods, isn't that the utopia?
On the surface, it looks like it. Who wouldn't want abundance?
Right.
But here is where we have to look at the mechanics, not the fantasy. Humayoon is very clear that we shouldn't frame this as a utopia or a dystopia. It is simply a mechanical imbalance.
An imbalance.
Yes, because the economy we currently live in is built entirely on value signaling. Things have value largely because they are scarce or because they required effort to produce.
Supply and demand.
Exactly. If supply goes to infinity through automation, the traditional signaling of value fundamentally changes. You hit a wall of saturation.
The source paints a picture of warehouses overflowing.
Metaphorical and literal warehouses. Shelves filled with unsold inventory. Software updates that change nothing because the app is already perfect.
Smartphones so advanced that consumers just stop caring.
It is the definition of satiation. We are full.
We are full, and this is where the paradox bites. In a normal economy, if you have infinite supply, you need infinite demand to match it, to keep the money moving.
But where does demand come from?
It comes from people buying things.
And what do people need to buy things?
Money, wages.
And that is the break. That is the decoupling.
Okay, let's slow down and trace this, because this is the breaking of the circular flow that the source material spends a lot of time on. I think most of you listening understand the classic loop of economics.
It is economics 101. Labor leads to wages. You
Yeah.
go to work, you get paid. Wages lead to consumption. You take that money, you buy shoes, food, subscriptions. That consumption drives production. Companies see you buying, so they make more.
It is a self-reinforcing circle. It's the engine of modern capitalism.
Correct. But Humayoon points out that AI introduces a short circuit. When AI performs the labor, the wage component of the loop is bypassed.
Bypassed entirely.
The machine does the work. The machine creates the value. But the machine does not receive a paycheck.
So the capital that usually flows down to the worker, which then flows back up to the company via consumption, just stops.
It doesn't flow down. It stays at the production layer. It stays with the corporation or the owner of the AI.
And this leads to that incredible irony mentioned in the text, the corporate blind spot.
Yes.
Corporations are looking at their spreadsheets right now. They're seeing costs drop, efficiency creating record earnings, and they are cheering.
They are optimizing their internal metrics perfectly.
But they are operating with a massive blind spot. They are forgetting that their former employees were their future customers.
That is the crux of the demand void. If the cost of production drops to near zero, but the distribution of income narrows, the consumer side of the economy loses its physiological base.
We're going to have to unpack the mechanics of that void, because the source introduces a concept called the reduced velocity of money. I want to explain that term because it sounds highly technical, but it is actually really intuitive.
That is. Velocity of money is just the frequency at which one unit of currency is used to purchase domestically produced goods and services within a given time frame.
How fast a dollar moves around.
Exactly.
Right.
In a healthy economy, money moves fast. I pay you for a service, you pay the grocer pays the farmer. That $1 creates $3 worth of economic activity.
But in the AI futures scenario,
In this scenario, the money stops moving. If the capital stays trapped in the automated production layer, meaning the machines are making things cheaply and keeping the profits, and it doesn't reach the household layer via wages, the loop stagnates at the top.
stagnates at the top. The source uses a really specific shoe analogy to ground this.
It is brutally simple. AI made more shoes, but fewer people had jobs, and so fewer people bought the shoes.
You have a highly efficient factory churning out sneakers at record speeds.
Yeah.
But outside the factory gates, you have a population with no income to purchase them.
And I think the trap we fall into is thinking this is just about manufacturing. When we say automation, people naturally picture robot arms in a car factory.
They think, well, I work in an office, so I'm safe.
That is the dangerous assumption. Humayoon argues this goes way beyond physical labor. He introduces the concept of the cognitive warehouse.
The cognitive warehouse. I love that phrasing. We aren't just storing physical goods anymore. We are storing potential intellect.
Precisely. We need to shift our focus to the white-collar sector. AI isn't just replacing manual tasks. It is displacing the administrative and creative connective tissue of the economy.
Connective tissue. We are talking about the middle managers, the data analysts, the project coordinators.
So freelancers.
Right, the people whose job it is to take information from one place, process it, and move it to another.
Yes. And AI is devastatingly good at that. The source describes a paradox of productivity without participation.
Explain that for us.
Imagine a firm that generates incredible efficiency metrics. It has massive output, but its local community footprint shrinks to near zero.
So they are making money, but They employ almost no one in their actual city.
Exactly. You have economic growth on paper, but no human participation in that growth.
So we need to reframe how we look at job loss here.
We do. Instead of focusing on traditional unemployment, Humayun frames this as the contraction of the human role in systemic maintenance.
The contraction of the human role. It is not that the economy is broken in a traditional sense. It is that humans are simply needed less to keep the lights on.
And what is eerie about this, and the source makes a huge point of this, is how invisible it is.
Invisible displacement.
Right. Contrast this with historical disruptions. War, for example. A war destroys value. It bombs factories. It ruins cities. And as grim as it is, rebuilding creates jobs.
It requires human labor to fix it.
But in this scenario, nothing is destroyed. The key detail Humayun uses is no smoke, no fire.
No smoke, no fire.
AI replaces spreadsheets, freelancers, and middle management quietly. It is silence at scale.
Silence at scale. You don't see a burning building, you just see fewer emails in your inbox. You see fewer listings on job boards.
And that leads us to the ultimate consequence of all this efficiency. We have to discuss the phrase that frames this whole episode. The machines work too well.
Yeah, let's sit with that, because working well is the goal. We optimize everything. But here, that optimization creates what the source calls economic silence.
Think about the demand void. If you have that overflowing inventory we mentioned earlier, but purchasing power is highly concentrated, you get malls that are empty.
But they aren't empty because of a financial crash.
No.
It's not a lack of goods.
The malls are empty because the incentive to participate has been structurally altered. If the mechanism that distributes purchasing power is removed, the economy goes quiet.
The source frames this as systemic subtraction.
Systemic subtraction. It is not a sudden crash. It is the gradual removal of the human variable from the equation of progress.
And structurally, this is driven by the marginal cost of intelligence approaching zero.
That is the exact mechanism. When the marginal cost of intelligence, the ability to solve problems, organize data, write a report, approaches zero, the value of selling human intelligence drops.
Because you cannot compete with free.
You can't. And this brings us back to the physiological base.
Right. Remind the listener about the physiological base.
AI doesn't need a paycheck. It doesn't eat, sleep, or spend. Humans do.
We are the biological engine of the economy.
Exactly. Without incomes, the economic machine spins perfectly. It produces goods, but it doesn't move forward. It creates a stagnation of surplus.
A stagnation of surplus. It really forces you to look at the big picture. We built this system for us.
That is the core contradiction. A system built for humans that, by chasing maximum efficiency, eventually removes the human from the loop entirely.
As the summary notes say, the system eats itself.
It does. But we have to remember the tone guardrails of the framework here. We are being observant. We aren't using words like ruin or war or collapse.
Right. No alarmism. We are talking about asymmetry.
Asymmetry, saturation, and stagnation. It is a structural decoupling.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the productivity paradox, there is a final provocation I want to leave you with. Something for you to mull over as you look at the software you use every day.
It is the ultimate question Humayun leaves us with.
In a world where machines provide everything but consume nothing, who is progress actually for?
If the loop is just machines making things for other machines to optimize, where do we fit in?
Exactly. Who is the abundance for if nobody can buy it?
It is a heavy question.
It is. But this is just episode 1 of the AI Futures Framework. Next time, we are moving on to the next installment.
The cognitive tier framework.
Right. Because while some systems stagnate, others diverge. Next episode, we are going to map the structural differences between those who navigate this shift and those who are absorbed by it.
It's all about adaptation.
You won't want to miss it.
Stay tuned.
Stay curious.
Stay systemic.